So first chapter is theories of international trade. So what we are going to learn in this chapter? Okay, international trade and internal trade. International trade and internal trade. Before international trade, we have internal trade. People were buying and selling goods within the country. Trade was there from the time of civilization. Trade was there from the time of civilization. Earlier we had internal trade. That means people were trading among themselves. People of one particular geographical location were trading among themselves. People of one particular geographical location or of one particular place were trading among themselves. So when there was internal trade or domestic trade, why there was a need for international trade? That is the first thing that we need to understand. When there was internal trade or domestic trade, why there was a need for international trade? మనలో మనం ట్రేడ్ చేసుకుంటున్నాంగా, మళ్ళీ వేరే కంట్రీ నుంచి ఇంపోర్ట్ వేరే కంట్రీకి ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం ఎందుకుంది? అది అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి ఫస్ట్. నెక్స్ట్, ఆర్ బోత్ కైండ్స్ ఆఫ్ ట్రేడ్ సిమిలర్ ఆర్ ఈస్ దర్ ఎనీ డిఫరెన్స్ బిట్వీన్ ద టూ? If so, what are those differences? That we will cover in the first point. Differences between international trade and internal trade. Next, arguments in favor and against of liberal. Liberal means nothing but international. Liberal means nothing but international. So what are the advantages of international trade? What are the disadvantages of international trade? Arguments in favor means advantages. Arguments against means disadvantages. So why international trade is beneficial than internal trade? Why international trade is beneficial than internal trade? Was explained by different economists using different theories. Altogether we have 6 theories. Altogether we have 6 theories. With the help of these 6 theories, economists try to explain why international trade is better than internal trade or domestic trade. See, already we are buying and selling goods in India. Now if I want to participate in international trade, definitely my advantage should be more than the advantage, whatever the advantage that I am getting in internal trade. Then only I will participate. If I am getting the same advantage in international trade that I used to get in internal trade, then there is no use of participating in international trade, because international trade is quite cumbersome and difficult to carry on compared to internal trade. So keeping that, what I mean to say is that if advantages in international trade is more than internal trade, then only countries will participate in international trade. అంతే కదరా, అర్థం కాలేదు సార్ అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఎవడో వచ్చి ఇంట్లో పప్పన్నము పెళ్ళికల్లా పప్పన్నమే సేమ్ డిష్, 150 రూపాయలు ఆటోస్ని పెళ్ళికెళ్ళటం అవసరమా? నేనైతే అదా ఇస్తా. అన్లెస్ ఇట్స్ ఏ క్లోజ్ రిలేటివ్, క్లోజ్ ఫ్రెండ్. ఏడుస్తాడు కాదు లేకపోతే అంతా అంతే కదరా, లేకపోతే ఆలోచిస్తా. ఇక్కడ అదే కనబడుతుంది, అక్కడ అదే పెడతాడు, సేమ్ ఐటమ్స్. ఇంట్లో వండారమ్మా ఆ రోజు, ఇంట్లో 2 రకాల పచ్చళ్ళు పెట్టారు, బజ్జీ పెట్టారు, వెళ్తూ జలేబీ తీసుకెళ్ళారు, స్వీట్ అయిపోయింది అక్కడే. ఇంట్లో తోడుపెట్టిన పెరుగు, ఆవకాయ, రైసు, పప్పన్నం, నెయ్యి అన్నీ పెట్టారు. పెళ్ళి కూడా అయ్యే కొండేయి, 2-3 ఐటమ్స్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటాయేమో. ఆ పెళ్ళి ఎక్కడ ఉందా అంటే మా ఇంటి దగ్గర నుంచి 10 కిలోమీటర్స్ దూరంలో ఉంది. వెళ్తానా? సచ్చినా వెళ్ళను. నేనైతే వెళ్ళను, మీరు వెళ్తారేమో కానీ నేనైతే సచ్చినా వెళ్ళను. ముందు చూసేసుకొని, ముందు డిస్టెన్సే నాకు హెడేక్. 10 కిలోమీటర్స్ రోజు విజయవాడ గుంటూరు తిరిగి మళ్ళీ 10 కిలోమీటర్స్ వెళ్ళాలా? పోరా, నువ్వు పెళ్లి చేసుకుంటున్నావుగా, నువ్వు హ్యాపీగా ఉండి చాలు, మళ్ళీ నేనెందుకు పడిపోతా. ఒకవేళ వెళ్ళాలనిపించింది అనుకున్నా, మనం ఏం చేస్తామంటే ఇంట్లో పప్పు అన్నం, అక్కడ మామూలు పెట్టట్లా, అన్నీ ఎగిరేయి, పాకేయి, నడిచేయి, అన్నీ రకాలు పెట్టేశారన్నమాట. స్టార్టర్సే ఉన్నాయి, 10 రకాల స్టార్టర్స్, వెజ్ ఉన్నాయి, నాన్ వెజ్ ఉన్నాయి. మనకు వెలుగుతుంది అన్నమాట. రోజు తినే అన్నమే కదా, అక్కడికి వెళ్తే అది ఇంటి దగ్గరే పక్కనే, నడుచుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోవచ్చు. నడుచుకుంటే చక్కగా ఆకలేసి తినేసి గట్టికి తినేసి నడుచుకుంటూ వచ్చినా అరిగిపోద్ది. ఎటువంటి ఆలోచన పడాల్సిన అవసరం లేదన్నమాట, అప్పుడే వెళ్తాం మనం. అవునా కాదరా? ఇక ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ట్రేడ్లో కూడా అంతే. నాకు ఎంతో కొంత బెనిఫిట్ రావాలి. ఇక్కడ వచ్చే 10 రూపీస్, అక్కడ 10 రూపీస్ వస్తుంది. ఎందుకు? రిస్క్ తీసుకోవడం ఎందుకు? గుంటూరులో అమ్మిన 10 రూపీస్. If I'm getting same amount of profit in exports also, there is no need to export. I should be getting more profit in exports when compared to domestic sales. Then only I will be interested in participating in international trade. In the same way, these economists also try to explain some advantages which the countries should get. Then only they will participate in international trade now. And the last one is the basis of trade according to modern theory of trade. Okay. So these are the areas that we will learn in this chapter. If you look at the weightage, in recent examination, we got around 2 marks from practical questions. 2 marks or 3 marks. Okay. So consistently you are getting 2 to 3 marks from this chapter. 2 to 3 marks. Okay. Right. And I will be explaining this entire chapter in main material, but you people go through fast track. Because for the sake of 2 marks or 3 marks, there is no need to take that much amount of strain and burden. Because here there are some questions which are around 2 pages or 3 pages. Okay, right. So, first question.
Specification of international trade in comparison of to international trade.
Very good. Internal trade. ఇక్కడ ఎవరికి ఏమీ రాదు, నాకు రాదు. నేను కూడా కావాలని మిస్టేక్స్ చదువుతా, కానీ చెప్పు చదవమంటా మిస్టేక్స్ అని కూడా చదువుతా, నేను కావాలని చదువుతా. నవ్వుకుంటారు, నవ్వుకొని చూపించుకుంటున్నారు, పొద్దున్నే బ్రష్ చేశారు కదా అంతే, నువ్వేం ఆలోచించుకో. So specifications of international trade in comparison to internal trade. First let us understand about internal trade. First point is about internal trade. Read it, Nana.
Domestic trade or internal trade. Domestic trade involve exchange of the goods and service within the domestic terrorism of country using domestic currency.
Exchanging of goods and services. Exchange of goods and services means buying and selling of goods and services within the country. When we are buying and selling goods and services within the country, how many types of currencies we will use? In India, we use only rupee. As far as the knowledge I have, we use only rupee. You may use some other currency. Okay, there is domestic trade or internal trade. Next, Nana.
International trade. International trade is the exchange of the goods and service as well as the resources between two countries.
Okay, here goods and services are exchanged, that is bought and sold between countries. That means goods will move from one country to another country. Next, Nana.
It is involving the transactions between the residential of different countries and also multiple
currencies. Here, since 2 or more countries are involved, we will be using multiple currencies. That means we are required to change from one currency to another currency. Next, Nana, specifications. Specifications means features, Nana. Features. Features, that means what are the different features when compared to international trade and internal trade. Specifications of international trade in comparison to internal trade. International trade has greater complexity compared to internal trade. International trade is easier or difficult? Difficult. So it is complex in nature. In what way, sir? Because of these points we can conclude that, or we can say that international trade is complex compared to internal trade. First one is Chadu.
Heterogeneous of customers of currency, difference in the legal system of business.
Full stop. Explain చేయాలి కదరా. మళ్ళీ చదువు పాయింట్ నంబర్ ఏ.
Customers.
మళ్ళీ చదువు. Heterogeneity.
Heterogeneity of customers and currencies.
Heterogeneity of customers and currency. నువ్వు చదివినప్పుడు అలా చదువుతావా? అలా చదువుతావా? స్లో చదువుతావు కదా? ఎందుకు నీ ఆ చదివితే నీకు అర్థం కాదు. నువ్వు చదివినట్టు ఉంటుంది కానీ దీనిలోకి ఏమీ ఎక్కదు. నా ప్రాబ్లం కూడా అదే. Heterogeneity means different. Very good. Homogeneous means same. Heterogeneity means different. అంతే కదనా? ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, in European countries they use pepper more and chili less. Okay, but in our country we will use chili. There they will use chili flakes. Here we will use green chili, raw chili if necessary. That means what? The taste of the people changes from one country to So depending on that, the company has to adopt its product. Adopt its product. That means if a food company wants to sell its food item in India, it should be somewhat spicy compared to the food items that are sold in European countries. Spicy gundale ikkada. Koddhiga uppu karam taglali. That's aslu urukom. Next nana. Differences in legal system, business practices and politicals. There is difference in rules and regulations, laws. Tax law is not same in all the countries. Rates are also not same in all the countries. Okay, there are different policies which differ from country to country. Okay, the Companies Act in India may be different from Companies Act in some other country. So depending on the situation, the companies need to adopt their businesses. Next nana.
More elaborated documentation.
Compared to domestic trade, in international trade, we will have more documentation work.
Exchange of rate of risk.
Amma?
Exchange of rate of risk.
Exchange rate risk. Exchange rate risk means what? When we need to convert from one currency to another currency, we may get more currency or we may get less currency. That means what? The exchange rate is not stable, it is volatile. The exchange rate is not stable, it is volatile. Sometimes we may get more currency in return of one currency, or sometimes we may get less currency in return of another currency. That is called as exchange rate risk. That means in simple terms, either there can be appreciation of currency or depreciation of currency. It will definitely affect your revenue. Next nana. Complex procedures and formalities. Compared to internal trade, in international trade we have n number of formalities to follow, and we have to carry out n number of procedures. We have custom formalities to look after, we have custom procedures to look after. Internal trade, we don't have that kind of headache. High operating cost. International trade, operating cost of international trade, cost incurred in international trade is more than the cost incurred in internal trade. Okay, next, diverse restrictions in the form of taxes, regulations, duties, tariffs, quotas, trade barriers and standards. Different types of restrictions. Now all these restrictions or different types of restrictions you may not find in internal trade. You may find taxes in internal trade, but other things, regulations, duties, tariffs, quotas. Quotas means limitations or restrictions. Quotas means nothing but restrictions. All those things you will learn in trade policy chapter. Okay, next chapter, that is trade policy. Okay, there you will come across all those things now. So all these are present in international trade but not in internal trade. Okay. Restraint on movement of specified goods and services. Restraint means restriction. Restriction to movement. See, when it comes to internal trade, goods can be easily moved from one state to another state. Hardly you will have any restriction. But when it comes to international trade, there are so many restrictions that you need to look into. You cannot easily transport goods You cannot easily transport goods from one country to another country, just like in internal trade. International trade, you have several restrictions that we need to follow. Issues related to shipping, insurance and transportation is predominant in international trade compared to internal trade. So all these are the points because of which international trade is complex than internal trade. Nana. Next, difference between internal trade and international trade. Okay, you please go through that point, Nana. You please go to that point on your own. Chadavandi screen web choosing. Screen web choose chadavandi. Whatever the points that I have explained, the same things are covered there. Differences, meaning, countries involved, currency, we all know. Internal trade means only one country and one currency. International trade means minimum two countries and more than one currency. Compared to international trade is less riskier or more riskier? Compared to international trade is less riskier. Okay. Procedure involved, very less procedures in internal trade, more procedures in international trade. Government restrictions, less in internal, more in international. So benefits of international trade. So in this question we are going to learn some of the benefits of international trade. And in topic 3 we are going to learn about disadvantages or arguments against international trade. So in topic 2 we are going to learn about arguments in favor of international trade. In question number 3 we are going to learn about arguments against international trade. So what are the arguments in favor of international trade? See, international trade means we're talking about exports and imports, right? Talking about exports and imports. See, when resources are not adequately available in the country, then it is better to import those resources from abroad. When resources are not adequately available in the country, then it is better to import those resources from abroad. So when you import those resources from abroad, automatically availability of resources in the country will increase. When the availability of resources in the country increases, productivity increases. When productivity increases, it leads to economic growth. That is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is by producing more goods and exporting goods to other countries, the revenue of the country increases. Or when the exports from India increases, you can say that productivity in India increases. If you are exporting more, means we are producing more. When there is increase in productivity, what will happen to employment? Increases. When employment increases, income also. So overall standard of living increases, it leads to economic growth. So you can look at it in different ways. Okay, the first point is it acts as a stimulus to economic efficiency. So some of the benefits of international trade. Some economists and policy makers argue that there are net benefits from keeping market open to international trade and investment in the following ways. So if we encourage export and import of goods and services as well as resources, if we encourage not only export and import of goods and services, but also export and import of resources, and then it will have then that country will have certain advantages. What are those? First one is as a stimulus. There should be gap between AS and stimulus. No. The gap is missing here. So you need to make that correction. As a stimulus. So here there should be gap. It should be as a stimulus. Okay. This word should be like this. As stimulus. It means international trade act as stimulus. Stimulus means encouragement. Stimulus means encouragement. It acts as stimulus to economic efficiency. So international trade helps us in achieving economic efficiency. How, sir? The wider market induces. See, international trade means you can not only sell goods, you can sell goods not only in the country but also outside the country. That means the market size has increased or decreased. So the wider market induces, encourages companies to reap, to enjoy the quantitative as well as qualitative benefits of extended division of labor. Quantitative means we're talking in terms of goods. Qualitative means we're talking in terms of services. So when the market size increases, the company can produce more goods and provide more number of services. So overall, its sales will increase. When sales increases, revenue increases. When revenue increases, profits also increases. So when the companies are developing, automatically it will directly affect the economic growth of a country. Okay. It enlarges their manufacturing capabilities. Because of this larger market, what will happen? The manufacturing capacity of the companies will increase. And when the manufacturing capacity increases, companies will try to produce in large quantity or small quantity. That leads to economies of large scale production. When you produce goods in large quantity, the primary benefit that you get is the cost of production per unit will be less. When the cost of production per unit is less, profits will be high. When profits increases, investment. When profits are increasing, companies will try to invest more or less. More. Investment increases, production increases. Whenever there is increase in production, it leads to economic growth. Efficient deployment. Deployment means utilization. Utilization. Deployment means utilization. Efficient utilization or deployment of productive resources to their best uses is a direct economic advantage of foreign trade. One thing you have to remember, one thing that you have to remember is, when you have opened your economy, not only you can sell goods to other countries, but foreign companies can also come and sell goods in India. When you have opened your economies, a domestic company can sell goods in foreign countries and foreign company can sell goods in India. Because of this, what will happen? The competition in India increases. When competition increases, companies will be forced to utilize scarce resources efficiently. Utilization of scarce resources efficiently is a good thing or bad thing? It is an advantage. That is the meaning of that point. Point number C. Greater efficiency. When we are utilizing resources efficiently, greater efficiency in use of natural, human, industrial and financial resources ensures productive gains. Because when we are utilizing resources efficiently, overall productivity will increase. Wastage decreases, productivity increases. It tends to decrease the likelihood of domestic monopolies. As I said earlier, because of competition, number of firms increases. When number of firms increases, domestic monopolies decreases. Monopoly means single seller. When there is increase in competition, number of companies increases. That means power of existing companies will decrease, which will benefit the community. Community means people, because people can get wide variety of goods at lower prices. Okay, reach cheaper prices or lower prices. That is the first advantage. Second advantage, enhances the domestic competitiveness. I have directly or indirectly explained that point. I have already explained that point. When India opened its market, several foreign companies entered the market, which forced domestic companies to work efficiently, or else they can't survive in the competition. Okay, so that is a point that we need to focus here. Okay, the gain from international trade are reinforced by the domestic producers to compete against global businesses. Because of international trade, domestic companies are forced to compete with foreign companies. Okay, competition from foreign goods compels manufacturers to enhance efficiency. When there is competition, producers will be forced to work efficiently or inefficiently? Efficiently. And when there is efficiency, cost of production decreases, profitability increases. And profitability, by adoption of cost reducing technology, you can only compete in the market when you are using advanced technology and adopting good business practices. Without this, you can't compete. Corporate governance should be top notch. Corporate governance, that means the way in which companies run their organizations should be at of highest level, and they should be using advanced technology, because advanced technology promotes efficiency. That is the reason why whenever there is a new technology in the market, companies will try to adopt it as quickly as possible. Example, chat GPT. Chat GPT. It's nothing but artificial intelligence. So as of now, almost all the companies have WhatsApp numbers, right? WhatsApp numbers. Almost all the companies are maintaining WhatsApp. In order to lodge any type of complaint, there is no need to make a call to customer care. You can simply drop a message in WhatsApp. For example, I have Act Internet at my home. I hope you people know how Chat GPT works. It frames sentences on behalf of you. It works in that way, artificial intelligence, right? So basically, whatever the work that you need to do, that software is doing on behalf of you. So you simply need to start writing some sentences, and remaining sentences will be framed by that software. I think that is the purpose of Chat GPT. Ade kada? Antena? Act Internet ante he has given us a support now. Earlier we used to call him directly in case of any disconnection in internet or anything. Okay, but what he has done is that he has given us a WhatsApp support. In that support center itself, the WhatsApp number is there. As soon as you open support, he will ask us a question: do you need any help? Yes. If I type yes or click on the button yes, chat platform will be opened, or chat page will be opened. Okay, so in that there will be a list of questions. I need to just click on, not typing, just click on that question. Automatically a conversation will be started with a series of questions. Chat GPT also works in the same lines. It is much more advanced, but it works on the same lines. Now, earlier this work was completely performed by humans. That means a person should be available at the end of the phone line to be able to answer you. Now there is no need to employ any person. Okay, just the company will employ that software, and you will get the services 24/7. So this is called efficiency. This is called efficiency. So what about mistakes? Computer never commit any type of mistakes. And if it's doing mistake means the software that is loaded by you has some wrong in that. Error is human, not machine. Error is human. No, if you have programmed that machine in a wrong way, definitely there will be problem in that, or else there will be no problem. You can guarantee consistency with machines, but you can't guarantee consistency with humans. For example, before lunch hour I may be active, after lunch hour I will be sleeping. And it has happened quite number of times. Before lunch hour I will be active and I will be taking classes efficiently. After lunch hour I will be in some sort of angry mood or irritating mood, because I am not interested in taking any type of classes. But still I have to take classes. But what about video classes? It does not matter whether it is lunch hour, before lunch or after lunch, or students are sleeping. You will keep on playing. That means its efficiency is standard. So when companies why companies wants to use technology? Because use of technology reduces human dependency. When human dependency decreases, you can standardize efficiency. You can standardize. That means there will be no fluctuations in efficiency. It will be at standard level. When there is standard efficiency, there will be certainty in the quality and quantity. It will ultimately benefit the organization. Okay. Next, Nana. Advantages of international trade technology. Just అలా నెమ్మదిగా వినపడతా ఉంటే నిద్రపోతారు. వినేవాళ్ళు వింటారు. Yes, Nana. Point number A. Okay. Augments means promotes. It promotes automation. It promotes automation, mechanization, specialization. Example, best example for that one is use of CDMs, ATMs. ATMs you all know. You also know CDM. You also know passbook update machine. All these are examples for mechanization, automation. It was only possible after LPG, that is liberalization, privatization. That means when we opened our economy, new technology came into the country through private banks. Private banks are the first banks who came up with the technology. When private banks came into the market with the technology, they started offering much better services than public sector banks. So public sector banks was forced to automate itself. Okay, next, Nana. Yes, Nana. We can, because of international trade, we can procure materials at lower prices. We can procure raw material at a lower price. Just imagine if there was no international trade, it would be very difficult for India to get oil from other countries, because India does not have any oil of its own. We will import 80% of oil from abroad. Just because of international trade, we are able to import oil from different countries at competitive prices. If there was no international trade, the situation would be completely different. Next, Nana. So when new companies enter into the market, or when companies have access to new types of raw material at reasonable prices, they can produce more number of goods and offer those goods at reasonable prices. Okay, next, point number 4. Example for that one is software company, software sector, service sector in India. Software sector is primarily a export sector, because what software companies do, they get their work from European countries and US. They do that work here and export those services to other countries. Just imagine that there is no software sector in India. The situation would be completely different. Just because of software development in India, I mean to say service sector development, service sector which is completely related to software in India, there are so many people who are preferring to go for engineering courses, and there are so many people who are getting employed. So what he is saying is that because of export, see, what foreign companies realize is that the wages in India are low compared to wages in their countries. So when wages are low, automatically cost of production will also be low. So instead of getting that work done in their country, those companies started shifting the entire work in India and started getting that entire work done in India at much lower prices. Now the company is getting benefited because it is able to get that work done at lower wages. But on the other hand, in India, many people are getting employed. When the employment increases, income increases, and people can come out of poverty. Next, Nana. It provides. I have already explained that point, Nana. Next. Inevitably follow trade. That means if there is international trade, then only there will be FDI. FDI stands for? If there is international trade, then only funds will come from other countries to our country. That means if there is international trade, that means our economy is closed economy or open economy? Open economy. That means we will welcome anyone into the country and we will go to any country to sell our products now. So when we talk about international trade, we are not only talking about goods and services, but also talking about resources. So if there is international trade, that means our economy is an open economy and more and more foreign investors will come and invest in our country. So it will be encouragement for FDI. Next. Best example for that one, automobile sector. In India, earlier, whatever the cars that were manufactured in India by Indian companies did not offer any kind of safety features. Example, airbags. Indian car manufacturing companies did not offer any safety features like airbags. But foreign companies which are manufacturing cars in India, from the day one itself, they started offering safety features like airbags. I hope you are able to catch my point. Now, slowly, people realized that if you want safety, better to spend some more bucks and better to spend some more money and buy foreign-made car rather than buying an Indian-made car. Because, for example, let us assume that I'm thinking about buying a car. In 2 months or 3 months, I will buy a car. I'm seriously thinking about buying a car. Now, when people like me want to buy a car, they will think about long-term investment. I mean to say, I will buy a car today and I will try to use it for a long period of time. 8 years or 9 years or 10 years. So definitely safety plays a very important role. Not only the investment, but also the safety. Mileage, all other things play an important. But safety plays as of now, safety is playing very important role. So earlier, before 2020, Indian car manufacturing companies were providing safety features only to the top-end cars or high-end cars, where the price of the car is very, very high. But where a foreign car manufacturing company is providing safety features to all types of cars, whether it's a low-end, middle-end or top-end. This directly created competition between Indian car manufacturing companies and foreign car manufacturing companies. And added to that, Supreme Court strongly warned Indian car manufacturing companies, stating that safety is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Safety is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You charge more, but you have to provide safety features. All this happened because of international trade only, because foreign companies are providing those features. If foreign companies were not providing those features, no one will question it. No one will question it. But in India, some cars have safety features and some companies are providing safety features and some companies are not providing safety features. Slowly, people will start questioning it. People will compare it. People will start questioning it. Why you are not providing safety features? Ultimately, that company will be compelled to provide safety features. So what you can see is that because of this international trade, all companies as of now are providing all types of basic safety features. So because of that, what happened to standard of living? It increased or decreased? It increases. So this is one such example. So the same thing is explained here. For emerging economies, that is countries like India, developing countries, improvement in quality of output of goods and services, superior products, finer labor means skilled labor. Finer labor means skilled labor. Environmental standards. As of now, all cars in India are following which standard? BS4 or BS6? BS6, that is also because of international trade. Foreign companies were following higher standards, whereas Indian companies were following standards which were set 20 or 10 years back. In European countries, everyone is following Euro 8 standard. That means there are 2 standards ahead of us. Or to be precise, 4 standards ahead of us. Earlier we were following BS4. We jumped from BS4 to BS6. What are these BS4, BS6 are? BS4 means Bharat Standard 4. BS6 means Bharat Standard 6. These are the standards which define the pollution that can be emitted by an engine. When a liter of diesel or petrol is burned by that engine, how much amount of pollution can be emitted? If the engine is emitting beyond that standard, that car company will not be allowed to sell such kind of cars, or it will be heavily penalized. These are the standard norms. That is the reason why you people are asked to get your car or bike pollution checked. Pollution checked. Okay. So because of international trade, what is happening? People are expecting to have high standard products. So when people start consuming high standard products, automatically standard of living will increase. Medicines standards పెరిగినాయి లేదా? ఒకప్పుడు ఆస్తమా అంటే చాలా సీరియస్ ఇష్యూ. ఇప్పుడు ఇన్హేలర్ దొరికేస్తుంది ఎక్కడ పడితే అక్కడ. ఏ షాప్లో పడితే ఆ షాప్ ఇన్హేలర్ వెళ్ళి కొనుక్కోవటం. దట్ టు చీపర్ రేట్స్. ఇంకా మీకు కొద్దిగా నమ్మకం ఎక్కువ ఉంటే కనుక అది జనరిక్ గుడ్స్ కూడా కొనుక్కోవచ్చు. జనరిక్ మెడిసిన్స్. నేనైతే అదే వాడుతున్నా ఇంట్లో మా పేరెంట్స్కి. హార్ట్ కావచ్చు, షుగర్ కావచ్చు, జనరికే వాడుతున్నాను. నమ్మకం లేకపోతే వెళ్ళరు జనాలు అంతే. అంటే హ్యూమన్ సైకాలజీ ఎలా ఉంటుందిరా అంటే 100 రూపీస్ స్పెండ్ చేసామంటే ఇట్స్ ఎ గుడ్ 10 రూపీస్ స్పెండ్ చేసామంటే ఇట్స్ ఎ బ్యాడ్ గుడ్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇవాళ మార్నింగ్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చెప్తా. విజయవాడ నుంచి గుంటూరు వస్తున్నా నేను. సాధారణ కార్ ఎక్కే అలవాటు, లేకపోతే ఏసీ బస్సు, లేకపోతే నార్మల్ బస్సు. ప్రైవేట్ ట్రావెల్స్ వచ్చాడు 50 రూపీస్ అంటాడు, ఏసీ అన్నాడు. ఎక్కలా వెళ్ళిపోయిన తర్వాత ఆలోచించా ఎందుకు నేను ఎక్కలేదబ్బా అని చెప్పేసి. ఎక్కలా, ముందు నడవలా, వెళ్ళిపోవాళ్ళం. అదే ఏసీ అన్నాడు, ఆడు ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తున్నాడు పైనుంచి, ఖాళీగా ఉంది బస్సు, 50 రూపీస్ అన్నాడు. అరగంట దిప్పేసారి తీసుకొచ్చి ఎక్కేయచ్చుగా. ఎక్కలా. ఐ వాజ్ వెయిటింగ్ ఫర్ ఏసీ బస్ 100 రూపీస్. అంటే నమ్మకం, ల్యాక్ ఆఫ్ ఫెయిత్ అనమాట లిటరరీ. కామన్గా ఇంకా అవుతాం. తర్వాత అనుకున్నాను, నేను నవ్వుకున్నాను అనమాట. అరగంట జర్నీ కోసం అంత ఆలోచించాను. ఎక్కేసి ఉన్నా పోయేది కదా, చల్లగా ఉండేది, వచ్చి దిగేసేవాళ్ళం. సచ్చినట్టు ఏం చేశాను, 70 రూపీస్ పెట్టి ఆర్డినరీ బస్ ఎక్కొచ్చా అంతే. ఒకసారి అదృష్టం కొట్టినప్పుడు లాగేసుకోవాలి లోపల దాన్ని. ఆగు 2 మినిట్స్ అంటే మన కోసం ఆగదు అది. అక్కడ ఏసీ బస్సు రాలా, ఏసీ కారు రాలా, ఏం రాలా, మళ్ళీ సచ్చినట్టు నార్మల్ బస్ ఎక్కాల్సి వచ్చింది. ప్రైవేట్ ట్రావెల్ దున్నుకుంటూ పోతాడు, గుంటూరు దాకా అన్నాడు, చక్కగా వెళ్ళిపోయాడు చక్కగా లోపల దాకా. సరే, ఫెయిత్ అనమాట. జనరిక్ మెడిసిన్స్ అంటే, జనరిక్ మెడిసిన్స్ చూస్తే కనుక మీరు సేమ్ కంపెనీ డ్రగ్ will be sold at 120 rupees in MedPlus. Same company drug will be sold in generic shop for 30 rupees or 20 rupees. అంత వేరియేషన్ ఉంటుంది. నేనైతే 1 year 1.5 year నుంచి బ్రాండెడ్ వాడతాం మానేసాను. నా పిల్లలకు వాడుతున్నాను అంతే. కొద్దిగా సాఫ్ట్ కార్నర్ ఉంటుంది కదా. నేనైతే ఫీవర్ వచ్చినా, స్టమక్ అప్సెట్ అయినా, ఏమున్నా సరే జనరిక్ షాప్కి వెళ్తున్నా, తీసుకుంటున్నా, వచ్చేస్తున్నా. బఠానీలు తిన్నట్టే, 10 రూపాయలు 20 రూపాయలు, ఏమి ఎఫెక్ట్ లేదు. ఇన్ఫ్యాక్ట్ అదే కంపెనీ మరి గవర్నమెంట్ హాస్పిటల్ అమ్మేది కూడా అదేగా. గవర్నమెంట్ హాస్పిటల్ కూడా అమ్మేది అదే కదా నాన్న. ఏంట్రా అంటే మనకు అది లేదు, సైకాలజీతో ఆడుకోవడం అంతే. అది ఒక 100 రూపీస్ ఎక్కువ ఖర్చు పెడితే, హాస్పిటల్కి వెళ్ళి 5,000 ఖర్చు పెడితే డాక్టర్ గారు బాగా చూసినట్టు. తెలంగాణ మెడికల్ పెద్ద హాస్పిటల్స్ ఏం చేస్తారు వాళ్ళు, స్కానింగ్ అంటాడు. సిటీ స్కాన్ అంత ఉంటుంది, ఓ 3,500 4,000 ఉంటుంది, లోయెస్ట్ ఆఫ్ లోయెస్ట్. ఆ స్కాన్ చూసి ఏమి లేదంటే మనం సాటిస్ఫై అయిపోతాం అన్నమాట, అమ్మ ఏం లేదు. అదే ఒక ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ డాక్టర్ చూసి మొత్తం, బాబు నీకేం లేదు పక్కడు అంటే సాటిస్ఫై అవ్వం మనం, డబ్బులు ఖర్చు అవ్వలేదు కదా. అదనమాట. సరేనా, నెక్స్ట్ పాయింట్ నెంబర్ 8. ఇట్ ఎన్హాన్సెస్ ప్రొడక్టివ్ బేస్ మీన్స్ ఓవరాల్ ప్రొడక్షన్. See, if one sector develops, automatically other sectors will also develop. So overall productivity in the economy increases. So here productive base means we are talking about overall production. Next Nana. Gainfully means profitably. Gainfully means profitably. Read it, Nano. Just imagine that there is no international trade, and during this season there is bumper sugarcane crop. That means we got more harvest than expected. So automatically sugar companies will produce more sugar. That means supply is greater than demand. There is no international trade. Supply is greater than demand. What will happen to sugar prices? Come down. When sugar prices come down, automatically price given to farmers, sugarcane farmers will also come down. Ultimately, who is going to suffer? Farmers. Now, if there is international trade, what these companies can do, whatever the surplus production that they have produced, they can export these surplus production to other countries at profitable rates. So overall, it will be win-win situation for everyone. Farmers will get much better rates, companies will get much higher profits. It will lead to increase in productivity, there will be economic growth. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. So international trade helps countries to sell excess production at profitable prices. Next, Nano. Okay, we can maintain stability. Because when the demand supply are almost constant, we can maintain price stability. If there is shortage, there is no need to worry about it. We can import it from abroad. If there is a shortage of supply in the country, we can import it from abroad. Now, if there is excess, we can export it to abroad. Next row. Human resource development. Because of international trade, not only foreign companies but also domestic companies demand skilled labor. Because of that demand only, you people are in this course. Because of that kind of demand. Just imagine 30 years back there was no such demand for this course or engineering course or other courses. Only because of international trade or globalization, demand for different courses increased. 30 years ago, no one thought about aeronautic engineering. 30 years ago, no one thought about chemical engineering. 30 years ago, there was no thought about computer science engineering. Today, it has become a common thing. Why? It is all because of international trade. Why? Because of international trade, foreign companies will come into India. So they will ask for skilled labor. So all the skilled labor will want to work for foreign companies. At the same time, domestic companies also demand skilled labor. So overall demand for skilled labor, semi-skilled labor, unskilled labor will increase. Okay, next Nano. So it will contribute to human resource development. This increase in demand for labor will lead to increase in human resource development. Next Nano. Next one, trade partners means here countries. Trade partners means here countries. Why there is a huge demand for software engineers in India? Because of good relationship between US and India. Simple thing, because of good relationship between US and India. There's a huge demand for software engineers because people know if they study software engineering, if they are software engineers, they can get a job in India, and if you are lucky, they can get a job in USA also. So if people are able to move from one country to another country, means it is only because of good relationship between these two countries. It is possible because of international trade. Next, Nano. Harmony means friendship. Harmony means friendship. It promotes friendship and cooperation among nations. Next, Nano. See, India is oil dependent country. That means we are dependent on imported oil. So when we import oil, we need to pay in rupees or we need to pay in foreign currency. We need to pay in foreign currency. Now, if that foreign currency is available with us, we can easily use that foreign currency to repay our imported bills. Or else what we have to do, we have to borrow from IMF. That is the reason why exports for India is very, very important. Exports for India is very, very important. If India is able to export more number of goods, if India is able to export more number of goods, it will receive more and more foreign currency. For example, when India is exporting goods to other countries, we will ask those countries to pay us in dollars. So higher the exports, more the dollar resource. India can use this dollar resource to pay for imports. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of international trade. Quite opposite will be there when it comes to disadvantages of international trade. You have 5 minutes of time. Please go through disadvantages on your own. I will be displaying that on the screen. So quite opposite, Nana. See, because of international trade, demand for skilled labor will increase, but demand for unskilled and semi-skilled will decrease. 20 years ago or 10 years ago, people used to employ people, companies used to employ people to take care of security. Now everything is dependent on biometric and cams. So mechanization leads to increase in employment or decrease in employment? Decrease in employment. That's the major problem here. And it is a major problem for a country like India. If India starts depending too much on artificial intelligence, demand for semi-skilled and unskilled labor will decrease. Unemployment in a country like India increases. That is the reason why as of now many of the people are showing interest in self-employment or starting small businesses. Okay, or working as a freelancer. That's a good thing. If you have guts and if you don't have the pride. Trade and international trade. In what way international trade is complex than internal trade? Second question is advantages of international trade. Third question is disadvantages of arguments in favor of international trade and arguments against international trade. Now, at the end of the day, what we have concluded is that international trade is essential for a country to develop. Because if there is international trade, on one hand, it can increase its exports. Because of international trade, on one hand, there will be exports. When there are exports, definitely there will be increase in production. When production increases, there will be economic growth. On other hand, the country can import resources at much lower prices than that is available in the country. In both the ways, it's a win-win situation. So international trade is far more superior than internal trade. That is one point. The second point is that a country will participate in international trade only when it is getting more benefits than in internal trade. A country will participate in international trade only when it is getting more benefits when compared to internal trade. For example, if India is able to produce laptops for 65,000 rupees, and is able to import the same laptop for 65,000 rupees, means there is no need to participate in international trade. It will only import laptops from USA when it is able to purchase those laptops at 45,000 rupees or 55,000 rupees. No. So there should be a considerable benefit for the country. Then only it will participate in international trade. Because we all know that international trade is complex than internal trade. So there are some advantages of international trade. These are the generalized advantages. But different economists came up with different theories explaining why a country should participate in international trade. According to them, international trade exists when both countries are mutually benefited. Both countries are mutually benefited. Both countries are mutually benefited. Here both countries means I am talking about exporting country and importing country. Both countries means I am talking about exporting country as well as importing country. That means it should be beneficial to both the countries, exporting as well as importing. So there are several theories in that regard. The first theory is called as mercantilism. In fact, it is not a theory, but it is a principle which countries used to follow. This theory was not given by any particular economist. It's a principle which countries used to follow. That is mercantilism. Okay. This theory is based on zero sum game. What is meant by zero sum game? It means that is one country's gain is equal to another country's loss. So from this, what we can conclude, in mercantilism, only one country is getting benefited. But what economists are saying, if international trade is only possible when both the countries are getting benefit, both exporting country as well as importing country. So first let us try to understand what is mercantilism. It is based on zero sum game. Why it is called as zero sum game? Because one country's gain is equal to other country's loss. So that implies net change in wealth is equal to zero. Net change in wealth is equal to zero. For example, see, this was practiced by many countries, and still some countries are practicing the same thing when it comes to developed countries. When developed countries are trading with developing countries and undeveloped countries, most of the time, knowingly or unknowingly they will practice mercantilism. The classic example for mercantilism is East India Company trading with India. East India Company trading with India. So what East India Company did, it manufactured goods in England, bought those goods to India, sold those goods to India, and return it took precious metals from India. So because of that, what happened? Wealth of India decreased. To that extent, wealth of Britain increased. Net change in wealth is equal to zero. So if the wealth of England increases by 100 crores, that means wealth of India will decrease by 100 crores. Plus 100 minus 100 equal to 0. Nothing but zero sum game. So under mercantilism, only exporting country will be benefited. Only exporting country will be benefited. Later on, different economists came up with different theories proving that international trade need not be mercantilism. Different economists came up with different theories explaining that international trade need not be mercantilism. That means they proved that international trade will be beneficial to both the countries. It will not benefit equally, but both the countries will be benefited. Okay, Nana. So in that, the first theory was given by Mr. Adam Smith. That was given by Adam Smith. The second theory is theory of absolute advantage. This theory was given by Adam Smith. Adam Smith. And just like any other theories in economics, this theory is also based on certain assumptions. What are those assumptions? Assumptions. A country has absolute advantage in production of one particular good. A country has absolute advantage in production of one particular good, and another country has absolute advantage in production of another good. A country has absolute advantage in production of one particular good, another country has absolute advantage in production of another good. For example, if India has absolute advantage in production of good A, USA will have absolute advantage in production of good B. In order to explain this theory, Adam Smith used 2 into 2 model. 2 into 2 model. That means he framed a model to explain this theory. Sir, what do you mean by 2 into 2 model, sir? 2 into 2 model means 2 into 2 model means we're talking about 2 countries and 2 goods or commodities and 1 factor. Adam Smith considered only one factor as factor of production, that is labor. He ignored capital, which is a drawback of this theory. He considered only labor is the factor of production because Adam Smith is a classical economist. In those days, labor was the factor of production. Later on, during 1730s, everything got mechanized. We started using steam engines in place of labor. So before 17th century, everyone thought that labor is the only factor of production. So basing on that explanation, we can conclude that here Adam Smith considered only one factor, that is labor. Okay. So these are the assumptions that he has taken, Nana. That is, a country has absolute advantage in production of one particular good, and the country has absolute advantage in production of another good. And he is using 2 into 2 model. So if you look at the notes that is given there, you can clearly see that a matrix is given. Matrix is given. I'm talking about this matrix here. 2 countries, 2 products. And with the help of this matrix, he is trying to prove that international trade is beneficial to both the parties when compared to internal trade. Okay, so I will take the same example. Country A, country B. Now you need to help me out with the values, Nana. Country A, country B. Okay, so wheat. There they have taken as bushels. I will take it as kgs. Kgs per hour. Kgs per hour. Bushels means in olden days, Nana, they used to measure. Rather than in weights, they used to measure in quantity. డబ్బాలు లెక్క సేర్లు అంటాం మనకి ఇటువైపు. ఐడియా ఉంది లేదా? మరమరాలు అవి కొన్నప్పుడు సేర్లు లెక్క అమ్ముతూ ఉంటాడు. ఇప్పుడు కూడా మీరు వేరే టర్మ్ యూస్ చేస్తారు. నాకు తెలిసిన సేర్లు అంటారు. మీరు మరలు ఉంటారా? మానక. డిఫరెంట్ ప్లేసెస్ డిఫరెంట్ టర్మ్స్. అదే డబ్బాల లెక్క. సర్లేరా ఏదో అట్లేరా. వీట్ కేజీస్ పర్ అవర్, Nana. Next, cloth. He has taken yards. Generally in large scale we talk in terms of yards, but I am taking it as meters per hour. It becomes very easy for us, Nana, to understand. Okay, right. So kgs per hour, meters per hour. 64115. Just by looking at this table, you can understand one thing. Country A is efficient in production of wheat. Why? Just look at the screen. Country B can produce only 1 kg of wheat, whereas country A can produce 6 kgs of wheat. That means country A is efficient in production of wheat. And country B is efficient in production of cloth. One country has absolute advantage in production of one particular product. Other country has absolute advantage in production of another particular product. So country A has absolute advantage. Therefore, country A can produce more quantity of wheat than country B. So country A has absolute advantage in production of wheat. In the same way, country B can produce more quantity of cloth than country A. So, country A has, sorry, country B, right? Country B has absolute advantage in production of cloth, which is represented with C. So a country should export that good in which it has absolute advantage and import that good in which it has absolute disadvantage. So when we're talking about a particular country having absolute advantage in one good, that means it has absolute disadvantage in another good. Am I clear? When country A has absolute advantage in production of wheat, that means it has absolute disadvantage in production of cloth. And if country B has absolute advantage in production of cloth, that means it has absolute disadvantage in production of wheat. So basing on this, what I will do is that I will decide which country should export what good and import what good. Country A, country B. Country A should export wheat and import cloth. And country B should export cloth and import wheat. Import wheat now. Now, what will be the ratio of export and import? What will be the ratio of, see, we have decided which good is to be exported and which good is to be imported. Now we need to determine exchange ratio. We need to determine exchange ratio. Exchange ratio. Exchange, goods exchange ratio. It is nothing but 6W is to 6C. That is literally an assumption taken by Adam Smith. According to him, 6W is equal to 6C. But if you look at carefully, wheat and cloth are two different items and they are measured differently. Then how can we equate 6W equal to 6C? That you need to ask to Adam Smith. Ledu. Okay, so that is the assumption he has taken. That's why this theory has several drawbacks. Okay, but what the assumption that he has taken, 6W is equal to 6C. That is the assumption. That means country A will export 6W and will import 6C. In the same way, country B will export 6C and import 6W. Now I have to prove that country A is getting benefited in international trade compared to internal trade. And country B is also getting benefited in international trade compared to internal trade. Then we can prove that international trade is not a zero-sum game. International trade is not a zero-sum game. So country A. Country A. Exchange ratio in domestic trade. Exchange ratio in domestic trade. If I am not wrong, the exchange ratio is 6:4, right? 6:4. That is 6W is to 4C. 6W is to 4C. That is, by selling 6W, country A will get 4C. Will get 4C. This is in domestic trade. Now I need to compare this exchange ratio in international trade. So exchange ratio in international trade. What is the exchange ratio? 6W is to 6C. That means by exporting 6W, country A can import 6C. Now within the country it is getting only 4C, right? But when it is participating in international trade, it is getting how many C's? That means it is getting 2 C's more than domestic trade. So the difference is nothing but 2C, which is a gain of country A. It is getting 2 C's more in international trade. I hope I have made myself very, very clear. In the same way, I have to prove that country B is also getting gains. When I can prove this, then I can say that international trade is not a zero-sum game. That means it is not a mercantilism. If you are able to understand this question, Nana, that is given by Adam Smith, then you can understand almost all the theories very, very easily. Because the same procedure is followed, only the principles will change. Assumptions and principles will change, but method will be one and the same. Okay. So this is country A. Now coming back to country B. వచ్చింది అంత హ్యాపీ ఫీల్ అవ్వాలరా. డాడీ ఎన్ని మార్క్స్ రాశారు నువ్వు అకౌంట్స్? ఏంటి ఆడు స్పైడర్ మ్యాన్ షీట్ వేసుకుని చెప్పేసి ఎలా పడితే ఎలా ట్రీట్ చేస్తే ఎలా రండి నువ్వు? రాసావు బాగానే. అకౌంట్స్ ఎన్ని మార్క్స్ రాసావు? రాసావు, వెరీ గుడ్. కాస్టింగ్ 2 ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ నువ్వు చేసి ఉండవు నాకు తెలిసి. స్టాండర్డ్ కాస్టింగ్ చేసావా? ప్రొసెస్ కాస్టింగ్, జాయిన్ పర్పస్ బైపర్స్ చేయలేదా? జాయిన్ పర్పస్ బైపర్స్ ప్రాబ్లమే అది, చేయలేదా? ఇంకేం చేయలేదు? థియరీ రాసి ఉండవు, రాసావా? థియరీ చాలా ఈజీగా ఇచ్చాడుగా, 3 క్వశ్చన్స్ రాసేయచ్చు ఈజీగా, 3 or 2 క్వశ్చన్స్ ఈజీగా రాసేయచ్చు. 2 రాసావా? 2 రాసావా? నీ అనుకోటరా. ఎగ్జామే రాయలేదా? థియరీ రాయదా? పోన్లే, 70 మార్క్స్ రాస్తే బాగా రాసినట్టే. రాసిందో పర్ఫెక్ట్గా రాసామంటే కనుక కనీసం 55+ వస్తాయి మనకి. ఓకేనా? మిగతా పరిస్థితి ఏంటి? వాట్ అబౌట్ యూ? బాగా రాసావా? రాసావా రాయలేదా? రాసాగా, రైటా. నెక్స్ట్ నా కంపెనీ బి. అరే బాబు, నార్మల్ కాన్వర్జేషన్ నేను తెలుగులో చేస్తున్నాను సార్, క్లాస్ తెలుగులో చెప్తున్నాను చెప్పొద్దురా రే. అవని అవన్నీ అవని, నేనేం దానికి భయపడను, దానికి భయపడనురా నేను. నేను చెప్పారంట ప్రకాష్ సార్కి ఒక 40% తెలుగు యూస్ చేస్తున్నారని చెప్పేసి. అది చెప్పారో లేకపోతే వాళ్ళు నోట్ చేసుకుని వెళ్ళారో తెలీదు అమ్మా. గ్రూప్ వన్స్ రాలా నా దగ్గరికి, గ్రూప్ వన్ మొత్తం ఇంగ్లీషే వాడుతున్నాం, మొత్తం లెక్కలేగా 2 + 2 = 5 అంటారు వాళ్ళే. బాగా ఇచ్చాడా? బావగారు కోపం ఎందుకండి అంటే పార్టీ దగ్గర ఇచ్చేస్తాం మేము. సరే నాన్న, నెక్స్ట్ నాన్న, లెట్ us క్యాలిక్యులేట్ గెయిన్ ఆఫ్ కంపెనీ కంట్రీ బి. కంట్రీ బి నాన్న. ఓకే, కంట్రీ బి ఎక్స్చేంజ్ రేషియో ఇన్ domestic trade. It is 1:5, right? That is, let me do it in another way. 5:1. 1:5 or 5:1. Nothing but 5C/1W. Since everything is in 6s, Nana, I will multiply on both the sides with 6. That is nothing but 30C is to 6W. Okay. So what is the meaning of that? To purchase 6W. Now country B needs wheat. Country B is exporting cloth, means it needs wheat, right? So to purchase 6W, it has to sell 30C. It has to sell 30C. I hope you got the point. Okay, so within the economy, in domestic trade, if country B wants 6W, it has to sell 30C. Now coming back to international trade, exchange ratio in international trade. Exchange ratio in international trade. So assumption for that one is 6C is to 6W, right? 6C is to 6W. That is to import 6W, it has to export. Country B has to export 6C. Now you can clearly see that by participating in international trade, the country B is getting 6W just by exporting or selling 6C. But internal trade, it has to sell 30C. So 24C, the difference is nothing but 24C is gain to country B. Country B. Am I clear? Okay, you need to be careful with the wording. So you can clearly see that both, since country A and country B are getting benefited, we can conclude that international trade is not a zero sum game. Question completed. The same thing is explained in your material approximately for 1.5 page. Merits and demerits. Okay, so once you have noted it down, Nana, we will go to the question. And as I said earlier, I will explain in main material, but you people refer it this chapter in fast track. It will be very, very easy for you. Because in the examination, he is asking for 2 marks or 3 marks only. So for 2 marks and 3 marks, there is no need to write that much amount of content. Shall I start going through in material, Nana? Right. Completed? Ali. Question number 5, Bawa. Ali chado. Topic 4. Okay. Premise means assumption. What they have assumed is that a country will develop when we export more, and return of that export, if we collect precious metals, the wealth of the country will grow. When the wealth of the country increases, automatically country will develop. That was the assumption in those days. So what these great countries, Europe, so-called powerful countries, what they did is that they assumed that if we want to increase the wealth of our country, we need to export more. in return, we should collect precious metals from other countries, that is gold and other ornaments. No. So that was the assumption. And the same thing was considered in mercantilism also. Next. Okay. A country accumulates. That is was assumption, Nana. If we accumulate more and more gold and silver, the wealth of the country increases. The country becomes rich. In those days, they focused only on the wealth, not on the development. No, wealth, increase in wealth is one thing and increase in development is another thing. Both are completely different. Your wealth may increase, but your standard of living may be poor. Your wealth may increase, but your standard of living may be less. That's not the kind of development we want. Now the assumption, now the understanding is completely changed. But in those days, development means how rich the country is. Today, development means it includes both economic as well as non-economic factors. Okay, next, Nana. So we shall export more and import less. In this way, we can increase our wealth. Next, Nana. That is nothing but the same thing is explained in another way. And one country's gain is equal to other country's loss. Nana. That is called as zero sum game. Okay, that means the wealth, simply wealth is changing the hands. There is no overall increase in wealth. So one country's gain is equal to other country's loss. So that the net change in wealth or benefits among the participants is zero. Simply the wealth is changing, wealth changed hands from India to UK. So overall increase in wealth is equal to zero. Next, Nana. Shortcoming means limitations. It had several limitations. The first argument made by countries is that when only one party is getting benefited, why the other party should participate in international trade? When I know that UK is the only country which will get benefited because of this trade, then there is no reason for me to participate in international trade. I have explained the previous class also. The trade between India and South Korea. Now India is thinking whether to grant free trade, whether to continue that free trade agreement or not. Because we are buying South Korean products, but South Koreans are not willing to buy Indian products because of several factors. So who is in advantage in this situation? South Korea is in advantage because it is able to export its goods to India. And whereas India is losing money because there is no demand for Indian goods in South Korea. It means only one party is getting benefited. So in such a case, automatically other party will think whether to continue the agreement or not. Am I clear? Next, Nana. Yes, Nana. Many big and fast-growing economies are following the same policy. India is doing the same thing with other countries. China is also doing the same thing with other countries. What China is doing, Nana, it is giving loans to other countries, knowing that the other countries are not in a position to repay the loan. When other countries become defaulters, what China is doing, Nana, instead of asking them to repay the money, China is controlling their assets, nothing but their land. Example, relationship between China and Sri Lanka. Hambantota port. That port belongs to Sri Lanka. China gave around $14 billion loan to Sri Lanka. The GDP of China, the GDP of Sri Lanka itself is $12 billion. But still, China gave that much amount of loan to Sri Lanka, knowingly that China is not in a position to repay the loan. Its object is completely different. And as expected, when Sri Lanka became defaulter, China simply asked Sri Lanka one thing. Since you are not in a position to repay the loan, you hand over an asset to me. And I will charge some lease amount or rent against that asset. And I will adjust it to your loan amount. Am I clear? You give your asset to me on lease. And whatever the lease amount I need to pay you, I will not pay you. I will adjust it against. So China was able to take control of Hambantota port, not only the port but also 1500 acres around that port. for 99 years. For 99, one short of century. And it's a very strategic port. Whoever controls that port can control the entire Indian Ocean, not only Indian Ocean but also Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. Because Sri Lanka is strategically located below India. And China wanted a hold so that it can control both everything, Nana. Whatever the material that is flowing from the other side of the India to other side. That means from Bay of Bengal to Arabian Sea or Arabian Sea to Bay of Bengal. Everything has to pass through that port. No. So since China got hold of that land for 99 years, it can use it for any purpose, not only commercial purpose, but also for military purpose. Now in this example, you have to understand one thing. Wealth belongs to, that land belongs to Sri Lanka. It is simply handed over to China. In this transaction, who is getting benefited? China. It's almost a mercantilism. Almost a mercantilism, okay. Same thing is happening between China and Pakistan also. Pakistan has a port. So China, what it did, it gave huge amount of loan to Pakistan. Pakistan straight away said that we are not in a position to repay the loan, because when governments change, automatically the existing government will say that whatever the loans that are taken by the earlier government, we are not in a position to repay the loan. So what China said, okay, you do one thing. You allow us to use that port and allow us to construct a 6-way highway from that port to China straight away. So now China, there is no need for China to wait for goods to be transported from Pakistan all the way around to India. If you look at the map, this is India kada. Somewhere here we have Pakistan. And above we have China. Now earlier what used to happen, Nana? The goods have to move from Pakistan all the way to Sri Lanka, then to China. So it should take around 1 month of time. Now directly the Chinese can unload material in Pakistan port, and they have built a 6-way highway from here. So within a span of 12 hours they can get this material into China. Now why Pakistan allowed it? Because it has taken a loan from China. It is not in a position to repay the loan. And China says simply one thing. If you are able to repay, you repay the money and I will hand over the port to you. But China knows that these people do not have that kind of money. So all these are, say, resources belongs to Pakistan but enjoyed by China. One country's gain is equal to other country's loss. Almost equal to mercantilism. Okay. Right, Nana. Next question, Ra. Question number 5. Chadu, Nana. Read it. Theory of absolute advantage with reference to international trade. He is the first person who said that international trade is not a. He was the one who argued that both the parties should be benefited. Then only both the parties will be interested in participating in international trade. Next, Nana. According to him, absolute cost advantage is the determinant of mutually beneficial trade. That means both the parties should be benefited in terms of cost. Both the countries should be able to save in terms of cost. Then only we can conclude that both the parties are benefited. Okay, Nana. Next round. That is assumption taken by Adam Smith. According to him, this theory is applicable only when one country has advantage in one good, another country has advantage in another good. Now you may ask a question, sir, what will happen if a particular country has advantage in both the goods? Then this theory is not applicable. We will apply some other theory. If you look at the matrix that is given there, you can clearly see that country A has absolute advantage in production of wheat, and country B has absolute advantage in production of cloth. In such a situation only this theory is applicable. I'm just changing the numbers, Nana. Instead of 4, 5, it is 5, 4. Then you can clearly see that country has absolute advantage in both the products. And country B has absolute disadvantage in both the products. In such a case, this theory is not applicable. We need to apply some other theory. Next, Nana. Here he focused only on labor. He considered labor as the only factor of production. Next, Nana. Yes, Nana. Every country has labor, but the availability of labor changes from one country to another country. In such a case, definitely productivity will change. When productivity changes, one country has advantage in one good, another country has advantage in another good. Next, Nana. For example, we have huge amount of population both in China as well as in India. But in India, we have skilled software people. In China, we have skilled manufacturing people. So in both the countries, we have labor, but skill level differs from country to country. So Indians are known for producing software at much lower rates, and Chinese are known for producing manufactured goods at much lower rates. That means India has advantage in production of software, and China has advantage in production of manufacturing goods. Same thing here also. Labor is available in both the countries, but skill level changes from country to country. In such a case, productivity will also change from country to country. Because of this reason only, a country has advantage in one good, other country has advantage in another good. Next, Nana. Each nation. That is the assumption taken by Adam Smith. When this assumption is fulfilled, then only this theory is applicable. If these assumptions are not applicable, then we can't apply the theory. Okay. So, example, Nana. The theory is presented with an example of hypothetical. He has taken an imaginary model, and that model is called as 2x2 model. 2x2 model means 2 countries, 2 commodities. I have already explained what are 2 countries and what are 2 commodities. The remaining part we will continue in the next class. And I have already explained it. I need to focus only on merits and demerits. Okay, once I have completed this question, then all the remaining questions will be easy, because all the remaining questions will be explained in the same manner.